there hasn't been a hit in our scene. When I say our, I mean the house music scene has not been a hit in 20 fucking years. I think the last one I can honestly say I'm responsible for partially was Kings of Tomorrow finally. Outside of that, I don't know. What are you gonna say? The Hey Hey record, maybe? I don't know. Other than that, I don't know another record that's kind of had true, real kind of absolute uh punch. I don't know one.
Who are we speaking with?
Johnny D. DeMairo.
What is Henry Street Music?
Henry Street Music is 30 years old, actually. This is my 30th anniversary. It's a label I started back in 94. I was Tommy Musto and I had gotten very, very close for a couple of years at that point. We had met in the late 80s. We reconnected in the early 90s. I was working at S.I.N, Street Information Network. And Tommy and I were seeing each other a lot. And when I wasn't like with Kenny and Louie, because I was really with Kenny and Louie all the time. When I wasn't with them, I was with Tommy. We would go back and forth. And one night we were at Sound Factory Bar on a Wednesday, which Louis on a Wednesday was the church at that point. That was literally only place I even cared to go. It wasn't even like, even though my business at that point, my job was to go and see all these other DJs. Really, for me, I mean, Louis on a Wednesday, that basically I knew where everything was at as far as my records and just the scene and everything. And I actually enjoyed the place. So that was where we were. And Tommy and I went for dinner. We were out there, we were talking the whole night. And I was like, yeah, these labels are kind of hitting a wall. I felt that a lot of the independent labels that were out at that time were kind of hitting a wall. They were putting out same type of bullshit keyboardy things. I felt like there were no classics being made. And I looked at it as a record collector. I didn't really care about these records. So I said, for the first time in my life, since I've been collecting records since I was probably 4 years old, I didn't care about the new records. So he goes, well, why don't you, do your own label, start your own label, be the A&R guy, and I'll press and distribute you. Which, at the time, Tommy and Silvio had Northcott Productions. They had their labels, Suburban and Fourth Floor and everything. And we shook hands that night. It was 3:30 in the morning in a snowstorm, leaving Sound Factory Bar. And at the time, Kenny was like my brother. And I wanted to start the label. And I knew what's ahead of you, because when you come out at the time, everybody had a label. And I wanted to have a splash. So Kenny was, he was getting big, but he was, he was partners with Louis at the time, and Kenny was making really, really smart records. And Kenny's, he's a genius with this shit. And he gave me my first record to launch the label, and that was it, man. From there, I reached out to people. People were contacting me, and it grew and grew and grew. And thank God, 30 years. It's been successful, but it's a rough time now to look back and to see like where the scene is, and it's kind of like it's made some pretty crazy turns over the last 30 years, without a doubt.
What was that first record you put out?
First record was the Bucketheads Woo with Tribal Rhythms on the flip. And just, great underground tracky kind of thing, nothing crazy. And it did its thing. It really was to launch the label and to kind of make Henry Street somewhat a player in the game, which it did. And from there, I mean, I came out with this record by Anthony Menino, Syncopation, which was really widely accepted. And then from there, it was just, then, I mean, the fifth release was The Bomb, which was, obviously the biggest record on the label. But I had the Funk Phenomenon, I had DJ Sneak Records, Robbie Tronco, Walk For Me, Crazy John Nick Records, Ashley Beatles' Only American record with Phil Asher, 95 North, Brutal Bill, just about everybody I've wanted to work with, I can say, has probably blessed the label at some point.
Who is Nikki P and how did you meet him?
Nikki P. So Nikki and I met Nikki back in 1982. I live on President Street between Henry and Hicks. He lived on President Street between Court and Clinton, which was 2 blocks up. And we had similar things going on around each other, but then we didn't officially become friends till like 82. And I was DJing almost 3 years at that point. He had just started spinning. And at the time we had a million DJs. Every block had 5 DJs on it. And he was pretty serious like I was, and was kind of nutty about, I was always crazy about credits and who wrote this, who's the producer. So he and I kind of clicked on that. And we did parties here and there. And then yeah, we started doing different things over the years. And then in 1993, after 3 or 4 years of Kenny and I being very, very close, Kenny was like, "Yo, you gotta start making records." And he's like, "Yo, buy an SP 1200, buy an S950 sampler. This is how you do it." And basically, Kenny taught me how to do this stuff. I took notes, went back to Nikki, and it kind of shifted where initially we were doing a lot of stuff together, and then over the years, because of my I was working at Atlantic Records and all these other things going on, Nikki was home, so he was kind of spearheading a lot. I mean, doing a lot to completion as well, but he was kind of spearheading a lot. He'd say, "Yo, I got this idea, I got this track, what do you think on top of that?" So because my brain works like a medley, he'd say, "Check this out." I'd say, "Put this on top," whatever, blah blah blah. I go over, I mix the records, and that was basically how the John Nick production situation was. But Nikki and I, like I said, we've been friends for a very long time. And yeah, I mean, at the time when I started the label, I figured we'd have the two things running, John Nick Productions, Henry Street Music, and there's some balance and off balance things where certain things go ahead of the other thing. And it just, I mean, at the time I look back, I honestly can't imagine how I was doing as much as I was doing within a 24-hour time frame, because I look back and I was literally, whether I was working at S.I.N or working at Atlantic, and the Henry Street offices initially were in Soho. After that, we moved to Ninth Avenue with the Film Center building. So it was like a 20-hour day. I was literally sleeping 4 hours a day, maybe, and just doing it all 7 days a week. And I loved it. I mean, there's no complaint, but I just, as a 56-year-old man now, I just kind of hard to imagine that I was that active at that point.
Wow, 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 wow. Um, Tell us about your earliest memories of music as a child in Brooklyn.
My earliest memories, I mean, I've always, it's like, I hate, there are things you hate to say because you're like so cliche, like, you hear somebody say, "Oh, my husband's the greatest DJ ever." Of course you're going to say that. I mean, who's not going to say that their husband's the greatest DJ? So it's like, for me to say music is a big part of my life and blah, 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 it, it really moves me. I mean, it has always moved me in a way I knew was different than my other friends. Growing up, for my earliest memories, my sister is 6 years older than me, and she would turn me on to music. And she had phenomenal, as an Italian female in Brooklyn, she embraced Gamble and Huff, Chicago, Helen Reddy, Barry Manilow, Alec Constantinos. So I was very fortunate to have her as my main source, in addition to radio, which was ABC, which was, all you really had really young. And then when FM kicked in, WBLS with Frankie Crocker, Disco 92, and then 98.7 Kiss, which came after 99X. I was extremely fortunate to have that whole set. But listening to music, I mean, my parents in the car, my father was great with letting me control the radio, which I rarely let my children do today. So that was great that he, let me do that. And I just always wanted to buy records. And there was a feeling. I remember watching Diana Ross on like this little bullshit 10-inch television in black and white in my parents' bedroom. Of course, the bigger color one was in the main room, but in the bedroom there was the little 10-inch that you could barely see. And Diana Ross was singing "Touch Me in the Morning," and it was a lot. I can't remember where it was, but I just remember like I felt this emotion. I still to this day, that record does something to me. And I said, wow, that's insane that that can do that to me. Watching this person, hearing this person sing is having this effect on me. And over the years, as as a producer and a label person and A&R, everything else I've done, I dissect so much music and speak to so many producers and have spoken to so many producers over the years. And I'm so oh, how did this happen? Where'd you get this idea? If I'd speak to Narada Michael Walden, like I'll ask him the craziest question, and he's like, how could you even think of that? And my brain, when it comes to music, it has morphed in all of these years into so many different things of loving the music. Why do I love the music? I love the beat. I love the string. I love these down chords, and this is like depressing, but it's great, and the story's great, and you know, uh now teaching my children about music, which I love. And my daughter's 19, my son is 15, and they know more music than I'm so proud of what I taught them, whether I did it intentionally or they just picked up on stuff being sponges. But I'm so proud that they have this. I mean, my son listens to mumble rap and shit, which I can't even believe, but he knows every disco record and yacht rock and ambrosia and play a baby come back and Elton John. And so I'm very, very happy that that's been a thing. But music is, like I said, I hate the whole music's my life, but it's it really is. I mean, I get into the car, first thing I do is put the radio. I used to go into my office, first thing I do is television and the radio. It's not even it's I sleep with the radio on. I have my own radio station, the Giant D Experience. That's on in my house in three different rooms constantly. I don't turn it off. There's music playing all day, every day. That's just how it is. I'm just it's everything to me. It really is. Always has been.
Wow. How
I
did
mean,
you?
I remember when I was like heavily into baseball and I started DJing early. I mean, I say I was 12, but I was actually 11 when I started DJing, and 12 I had my first equipment. But I was intense. It wasn't just like, oh, I'm gonna put, like I was playing with guys who didn't really understand what DJing was. They were like, oh, we'll meet girls. I was just like, okay, but those little knobs that have pitch, that's something. That means something. You're supposed to do something with that. These guys just throw on records, train record. And I'm like, no, that's supposed to, you're supposed to have that element of surprise. And the whole purpose of this is go from here to here, but, make it as smooth as possible. So you don't even, that whole that whole surprise aspect. And I knew that there was always something deeper with it. But I remember being in the dugout. I was a first string pitcher on my baseball team. And I remember being in the dugout and I was always singing. And this guy one day said, goes, oh, you like Carol Burnett. And I mean, people who don't know Carol Burnett was a, tremendous star and stuff in the 60s and 70s and stuff. And it was kind of funny because looking back at that, nobody else was doing that. Like, you're 8, 9, 10 years old, and I'm sitting there singing, Elton John, Don't Go Breaking My Heart or whatever it is. And it's kind of like, it was just such a part of me. You don't even realize it. And then that moment comes where somebody makes a comment, which he's kind of taking a shot at me. But looking back, I'm proud of that moment that I was the fucking entertainment in the dugout. So yeah, that's that.
What an incredible story. Um, how did your experiences at roller skating rinks influence your taste in music?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, there was a place in Brooklyn. Well, in Brooklyn at the time, there was one place called Roller Palace, which was basically like the Guido Cuisine Italian, hottest girls, the guys with the pushback and the whole thing. And that place, the first time I went there, I was just blown away. I mean, the sound system and everything that was going on. It was just that time when I look at the kids today with walking around, their hair's a mess, they don't shower for it looks like they don't shower for weeks at a time. Uh, like at that time, you got dressed and you smelled right, your hair was perfect, your jeans were pressed. I mean, that was a thing. That was you went out like, and today it's like you watch these kids and that doesn't exist, and it blows my mind how like they roll out of bed and these girls are like, and I just don't even understand it. But anyway, that whole scene was crazy, and Roller Palace was the Italian cuisine thing. The thing about my upbringing that I think was phenomenal is it was very diverse. I wrote graffiti at a young age. So through graffiti, I had a lot of Black Puerto Rican friends. So I was in areas I would have regularly never been. My grammar school, everybody in my neighborhood, I grew up in a predominantly Italian neighborhood. My parents didn't send me to school there. They sent me up to Brooklyn Heights, which was I was the only Italian. It was Philippine, Black, it was fucking United Nations, and I loved it. And I'm very thankful today, years later, um, because you learn so much from different cultures, as I'm sure you're aware. So, I'm in Red Hook, which is I'm the only white guy in a Black club or a party that's going on. So once I get past the fact that, he might kill me, and I'm like, okay, I'm cool because so and so saw me and we're all good. Now I could actually look at the culture and see the movement, the DJ, what they're playing, what people are rocking to. And then it was like I start going to the Puerto Rican and Black roller rinks, which was Park Circle, totally night and day from the Roller Palace thing. So now I'm open, I'm hearing music and I'm seeing shit that I would have never seen if I didn't have that opportunity. And then there was a place called United States of America, which was kind of right in the middle. That was like 98.7 Kiss came on, which became like Black, but a lot of the people for listening to KTU, the white listener. So like BLS was a Black radio station. KTU was predominantly a white radio station. Kiss came out and it was like, oh shit, like everybody's listening to the station. It was kind of so when they would sponsor an event at United Skates, you'd have the diversity. So I was kind of bouncing around in anywhere I can get to in any of this, whether it was through the roller rinks, block parties, any kind of a club. I mean, at the time I was very young, so if there were a couple of teen clubs, but not many. I was just trying to get as much of this as possible. I would sit with a radio every week with a pad and a pen and do the countdown on 99X or Kiss or whatever, whoever was doing a countdown of the records that were being played. And I would just make the notes, what are the top 10 records? It just always, there was something about radio and music that just grabbed me. And at the time, I had no idea about the behind the scenes of how all this stuff is heavily manipulated, heavily promoted. And being a promotion person years later, it's crazy to look back and say, wow, that's bananas that record was successful. Three other records that were probably better than that never even had a chance, but they didn't have a chance because there was all this political bullshit in front of it. So I think I got a little away from where we were as far as but yeah, roller skating, Roller Palace, Park Circle, and United States of America were a very big part of the ingredients that made me musically, absolutely.
Which artists or DJs had the most significant impact on your career during the disco era?
Well, on the radio, without a doubt, listening to WBLS. I mean, Frankie Crocker wasn't a DJ. He was just a voice, but he was the programmer for WBLS. So, he'd play music and, you're going to hear Frank Sinatra. You're going to hear, Quincy Jones. He wasn't, I never, I think being, a white Italian guy from Brooklyn, when you're in that area, it's great because you're like, okay, you're the guy there, whatever it is. But as soon as you venture out to, a predominantly Black or an urban kind of a thing, it's like, okay, now I have to prove myself 5 times over. Oh, here he goes, another white guy who likes Stevie Wonder. And it's the same fucking story. And the thing is, it bores me hearing somebody else say it. Oh, my parents listened to Barry White. My parents didn't listen to Barry White. My parents didn't have Stevie Wonder. This was me. I did this. My sister helped. I was reaching, but I was looking for it. So, as far as like the as far as me getting into it and making the moves with the music and stuff, it was really about always looking for more of it. It was always about where am I going to find new stuff? Who's going to turn me on to stuff? So that was kind of like always a drive for me. I was never content with, oh, I have 2 crates of records. I have 3. Oh, I have this. I have all these 45. It was always more. Oh, there's probably other things that are just like this. Oh, let me listen to this at this hour. Maybe there's different music being played. So I was always kind of open to I think I got away from, I'm sorry, I'm kind of forgetting what the question
Oh, no,
was.
just talking about like early which artists or DJs
Oh
have,
yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, so as far as the DJ is concerned, so when I started to really know about DJs, guys putting records together, I mean, I remember hearing Jonathan, I think Jonathan Fearing on BLS and Ted Curry, or without a doubt. Jelly Bean was on KTU, and I mean, I mean, as a DJ, I don't, I never really felt him, but his name and his reputation, he had such a push on WKTU Disco 92 that my neighborhood was like, he was a god in my neighborhood. So he was this little Puerto Rican guy, and all these Italian guys used to worship the shit out of him. I think that the main radio DJ that really shifted me was Shep Pettibone. When I first heard Shep Pettibone on Kiss doing what he was doing, to this day, I mean, on my radio station, I play Shep Kiss mixes that say 98.7 Kiss Mass. I have those, and I actually play them on my station. Um, Sh- Shep was an absolute. Did I lose you? You good? Okay, I got another call on. Shep was a tremendous influence on me. At the same time, right after Shep, there was the Latin Rascals and Dynamic Duo. So on the radio, so Dynamic Duo was Tommy Musto and Tommy Sozzi, Latin Rascals, Tony Marin, and Albert Cabrera. What they were doing on the radio, all through edits, molded me because I've always been a person that heard 2, 3, 4 records at once. It was like I'm a walking medley. And these guys were doing that. Tony and Albert, the Latin Rascals, they would do these mixes. They were called the Paco Super Mix. Paco was a radio DJ on 92 KTU and 20-minute mix. And it was just, this with this, with this, and then and multi edits. Blew me away. Tommy Sazzi and Tommy Musto, that Dynamic Duo, they did it. Shep was doing individual remixes. So he would, they would give him, okay, you got to do Mirror Mirror by Diana Ross for the radio station. We want to have a different version than everybody else. So da 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 da, like he would in these edits. To this day, it's just they're tattooed in my brain. So I would say those 3 particular Shep, Dynamic Duo, Latin Rascals are probably the 3 biggest ones. Now, as far as getting into the clubs and stuff, the 2 most influential DJs I will give credit to are Danny Cole, which I'll get into a little later, I guess, depending on where this interview goes, who was a DJ at Plaza Suite from Brooklyn, and Leroy Washington at Studio 54. I was going to Studio 54 in 82 to 86. This was the second. So this was after Steve Rebel and Ian Schrager, all the superstars. This was still a very hard club to get in. I was 14 years old, time fake ID, the whole thing. And the first time I heard Leroy Washington. Leroy Washington was also the owner of Love Light, which was David Morales' first club. And he also owned the record store in Manhattan called High Tech on Bleecker Street, which was an incredible record store. And Leroy was flawless. And he played for the hardest group of people because he was playing for 4 or 5 thousand white people who don't have a fucking clue. And I always said, the Larry Levans, all these people, yeah, whatever you want to say, yeah, it's just that it's not hard. Give me black people, give me black gay people all day, all day. Those are educated music people. Those people want to hear music. They want to know what you're doing. White people, predominantly, I'm not knocking all white people, they don't get it. And Leroy being in the booth and having to keep them on the floor, try to introduce new records around pop bullshit records, fucking incredibly hard. But I've always played like that. I don't play sets. If I'm gonna play music, I'm gonna play music. I'm gonna just play. I mean, I play predominantly disco and house, but I'll play fucking hip hop. I'll play anything. I don't like reggae. I won't fuck with reggae. But I I was very moved by the way he was doing that. I mean, he would drop the thrill, he put the Thriller video on, drop this big screen, then come out of it and play Sex Shooter by Vanity Apollonia, Captain Rap, and then Peter Brown, then somehow put Madonna in. I mean, the guy was all seamless. Guy was seamless. Before that, Danny Cole, which I'll touch on real quick. Danny Cole was a neighborhood guy, much older than me, and at the time in the late 70s and the early 80s, the block party thing in Brooklyn was very big. And a good friend of mine was dating Danny's sister. And he said, yo, you have to come to the block party on Henry and DeGraw. This guy, Danny, Catherine's brother's going to be playing, Danny. So I went there, and this guy had two 1100s in a club. I'd never seen 1100s in person. Like I was going to have a heart attack. And he was on top of the stoop, had a clubman mixer, and this guy was riding mixes. Like, just, I never heard anybody do that. And I met him, and nice guy, just keep in touch, whatever. 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it was, late in 1982. My boy Steven says, yo, you gotta spend Catherine's party for me in her backyard. I'm like, I'm not bringing my equipment out. He goes, I promise. And he can get me whatever I want. He was an electronics genius. He goes, I'll promise everything will be taken from your house. I'll bring it back. It'll be perfect. I DJ'd in the backyard, and Danny was there. And he said, listen, if you ever want to come to the club, Plaza Suite, let me know. I said, I'm 14. I can't get there. I'll try. He goes, no, I'll come get you. It's not a problem. And I went to the club. He picked me up on a Saturday. We spent the whole day, went to the club, got there 9:30, hung out, 10 o'clock starts. We're there 10 to 4 doing the whole thing. After a couple of weeks, I'm doing the lights. The lights back then was basically maybe one thing that made the disco ball move and one strobe, but maybe there were three. There might have been two. So that was my job. Was I'd be next to him. He had two 1700s in the club and two, and I was playing with three light switches. And he knew I knew my shit. And one, maybe I think it was about a month into it, about 10 to 12, he said, all right, I'll be back. And I'm like, what? He goes, I'll be back. And he just walked out, and he left me in the fuck. And it's done now. It's like peak. It's 10 to 12 on a fucking Saturday. The place is packed. And I'm like, oh shit. And I'm realizing this is it. This is my chance. And he put me on, man. He came back about 2 and change. And he was like, I moved back over to my light switches. And then from there on in, for the next 4 years, if I wasn't there, I was at Studio 54. That was where I was bouncing. I was in and out, those two places. And that's what fed me. I was playing, hearing new music, watching Manhattan, watching Brooklyn, watching these two guys. Danny was a phenomenal DJ. I'll always be incredibly indebted to him. He rest in peace. He passed a couple of years ago. He put me on, and that was a phenomenal. I mean, I was 14 years old, man. I mean, it was, looking back, I just can't even believe that existed. And Sammy the Bull, who was a big gangster with John Gotti and stuff, that was his club at the time. And those guys were really, really like so it's funny because so many gangsters ran clubs in Brooklyn, and most of them you hear like were just assholes. Those guys were the nicest guys. Like they were always respectful to Danny and I. And Joe, John, could you come in and my granddaughter is having a sweet 16 on Sunday. Yeah, no, but they're just nice guys. So nothing but great experiences there. I bounced back and forth. I want to tell you one quick thing about Studio 54, which was great. When I first started going to Studio 54 in 82, which was almost parallel to the time of Plaza Suite, guys in my neighborhood were giving out passes. So the pass was $18 to get into Studio 54. It was $12 if you had the pass. It was $6 off. So, and every week there was somebody, whether it was Claude Jabari, I mean, everybody, whoever was happening in that world was performing at the place. So I was handing out the passes. I make some money, $20 a week, 15, whatever, but you put your initials on it. And at the end of the night, they say, okay, who got what? They count them up. This many passes came in, whatever. So you get some money. So after a while, I was doing really well. There was on the pass that said Jay Bernstein and Andrew Epstein present Studio 54. And then it would say Claude Jabari, and at the bottom, almost as a little bit bigger than where it said printed in Canada, music by Leroy Washington. I mean, it's amazing how now the DJ's name is this big. Nobody, it's like, and now DJs don't even know what the fuck they're doing. They're this big. And back then, Leroy, arguably the number one club in the world, his name was this big. So, after a while, I said, I got a meeting with this guy, Jay Bernstein. I said, Jay, listen, I don't really care about getting the money. I mean, it's nice to get the money in, but I really just want to be able to walk into the club whenever I get here. I said, I'm never going to really abuse it. I'll probably just bring one person. But if you could put me down Johnny D plus whatever. And for 4 years, my name was on that guest list every Saturday, no matter who I went with. And I would never really abuse it, bring more than 2, 3 people. Most of the time it was one person. Walked into the place like I owned it. And that club just walking up the ramp, making the left to go in, it just had an impact on me that has yet I haven't had that impact since. It was everything about, and and I was kind of happy that this was post the Star Studio 54, because I would have been too caught up in who's that, looking at all these people. This was purely about music. I wasn't getting drunk, I wasn't getting high. I was watching Leroy in the booth and just, getting on. They used to have this, I don't know if you've ever been to Studio 54, but at the time they used to have this balcony that would come out from behind the stage, and it would come out. Well, actually, that wound up being the stage. That's where the people fall. But it would come out from behind the curtain, and on both sides of the DJ booth and across the dance floor, it would lock. So you'd go on the balcony, it would open up, you'd go on top of this balcony, I mean this bridge, and it would move over the dance floor while you're dancing on top of it, and it's moving on top of the. I mean, it was fucking unbelievable. So everything about that club just blew me away. I remember one night I said, I got a break tonight. I said, I really want to see how long this place goes, because everybody say, oh, 4 or 5 o'clock. I'm like, no, I think it goes later. I was there till almost 8 o'clock in the morning one night. I was on the steps because the Studio 54 was an old theater, so there were a lot of steps. And I was just sitting there, and I mean, there probably were 100 people left on the dance floor. And at this point, Leroy could have just been like, fuck it, just throw records on. And I remember he had on Do I Do, the whole 10-minute version. And it ends 4, 3, 2, and it ends cold right there. And it goes 3, 2, boom, 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 right into the bass line of Billie Jean. Like everything was always fucking perfect. It just blew my mind. Like, at that point, he could have been like, whatever, I don't give a shit. And he just stayed consistent to the end. So yeah, I think those are my definite influences as far as DJs and people.
What an incredible story. Is Leroy still with us?
Leroy is with us. I think he's in Jamaica or somewhere
Oh,
below the
not in New
equator
York.
over there.
He's not in New York anymore.
No, he's not. He hasn't been. He came up when Studio 54 launched that catastrophe of a radio station on Sirius. He came up, and if I would have known he would have been there, they actually had the party at the old Studio 54 building. I would have gone just to see him, but I didn't think he would be part of it. But yeah, it was the last. There's actually, I want to mention one more. There was a guy named Action Jackson in my neighborhood. He was in Cobble Hill, one neighborhood over, and he did a lot of block parties. Action Jackson was another guy that was whoa. I mean, he had two brothers, and he would stay at the turntables, and they would hand him the records, which was crazy. And he was fucking tight, man. He was tight, really, really good, really influential.
Can you share with us a memorable story about from the early days of Henry Street music?
Um, yeah, I mean, unfortunately, most of the stories have a cloud. So it's I wrote 2 books already, and I have a third book coming. The third one's going to be more autobiographical, and I said, as much as you want to, you talk about these things, and I have no problem with the clouds and stuff, but it's everything there's always been something. It's like, you're moving in one direction, and then like, there's just some other thing that comes out. So there's always some kind of drama, whether it's a pressing thing or a licensing thing, or there's just always something. But early memories, I mean, I love the beginning, going to Northcott, in the office with Tommy and Silvio, um, just learning it all. I mean, aside from knowing music, I knew nothing about the distribution and pressing, getting records into retail, how, distributors can screw you. I was telling this to my son the other day. I was talking about the label, and I said, years ago, a hit record could put you out of business. And I'm like, well, he's like, people look at, what do you mean? I said, well, at the time, if you press a record and you press 1,000 copies, you're to distribute the not the distribute the yeah, actually the distributor has 90 days to pay you, but the pressing plant wants to get paid in 30. So now, well, let's just do that real quick. I put out record one, and the distributor takes 1,000 records. They have 90 days to pay me. In 30 days, I got to pay for that 1,000. Okay, all right. Hopefully, I have some money to float it. So you keep it moving. Okay, 90 days comes back. And then from day one to day 90, I put out two more releases. The first release was a fucking bomb, but the second and third didn't do too well. The distributor, instead of giving me money back, gives me returns. So now what? So now I'm not getting the money. I'm okay. She owes me X amount of dollars. Oh no, she's gonna send me back records. She sends me back records. Now I don't have that cash to pay this 30-day pressing and distribution I gotta pay for. And that cycle, if you're not on point as an A&R person and putting out records that are gonna do somewhat well, you're out of business. And when I realized how lopsided that was, I kind of understood a lot of the labels that were having a hard time. Or I mean, listen, do labels screw people over from the beginning of time? Yeah, I'm sure most people, they're set up to do that. I didn't start the label for money or financial things. I did it because I wanted to do it. I had a job already. So this wasn't like, oh, I need this money to, like, pay my bills. So and listen, having said that, whether I did or not, I don't screw people, so that wouldn't even be on my brain. But but looking at how the system worked, I'm not saying I give people a pass for it, but it's more understandable that it's not cut and dry, because I could have a hit with you, and then the next two records are disasters, and then I'm not getting paid for your record, but you want to get your money because you're like, yo, I sold this many records. So it's kind of like when you it's a juggling act. It really is, and it's the business now it's one way. So if I press 1,000 records and I sell them, there's no returns. So today you sell less records, but you make more money because you can get more money up front, and it's all good. But back then it was a much more difficult thing, and I've never heard anybody ever discuss it. But that was probably the reason why a lot of people had problems with labels and stuff. Because and I'm not giving other label owners a pass. I'm sure people listen. I got fucked from many people. I mean, that's just the game. I mean, that's just what it is. I mean, I think that the business morphed into your record is a promotional tool for you to get a gig. It went from, oh, I want to make records because I want to make money. Then it became, I want to make records to get exposure so I can get a gig to play there. And that's, I think, where the whole business kind of shifted to. But it's, I mean, I'm just trying to. It's funny you asking me about. You'll give you a story, and just for some reason I was just talking to my son about that, so that was kind of in my brain. But I mean, I remember getting the test pressings of the first record, and I had a special stamp made up, and I was stamping each one, and I made 100 test pressings, and I wrote each jacket 1 of 100, two of, like, I really gave a shit. All the fonts, I picked all the fonts. I love that color, like a raspberry, so the ink was raspberry, and I was very. I loved that. Because because of the graffiti, you come from the art end, so I was always about the package. It's not just about, the logo's got to be right. Everything had to look right. I wasn't one of those people that was passing everything off. I definitely have a control issue where I want the mastering has to be right. The label has to look good. The sticker, the fonts, everything. I gave a shit about all of it.
I love that. What has digital technology done for the development of house music? Has it been an advantage or a disadvantage?
Well, it's an advantage in the way that there's no upfront costs. So you basically, you can make a record, you could sign a record and just put it out the next day, realistically, if you have everything set up with your digital aggregator and like the track sources and the beat ports and stuff. Excuse me. So if you have that sorted properly, you can put records out as many as you want. I mean, unfortunately, the downside to that is now you have this influx of tens of thousands of records coming out a week. So now, if you're a DJ, how are you digesting all that music? Back in the day, this when we went through the record process, so you get the record mastered. So maybe you make an acetate, you make test pressings, then you make maybe a promo run, then the domestic run. There was a 2 week thing. You had a shelf life of whatever it would be, month, 2 months. Then it went down to 2 weeks, and all of a sudden it was like the vinyl was getting inundated. It was getting too crazy. So now you don't have any of those upfront costs, but your profit has been significantly cut because now your competition is a million times greater. Everybody's doing it, and now you're fighting for placement on splash pages of anybody that's selling music. If it's Amazon, Pandora, Spotify, wherever it is, everybody wants to be. When you click, boom, listen to me, listen to me. So I think that I don't think it's helped our scene, but let me just say this. Our scene was in trouble before 9/11. So many people use 9/11 as a scapegoat. Oh, house music after 9/11. No, no, no. We were fucked before 9/11. 2000 came, our scene was very much hurting. And the reason why it was hurting, and I've been preaching this for years, in hip hop, if Busta Rhymes comes out with at the time comes out with a record, every DJ played the Busta Rhymes record. I mean, it had to be hot, obviously, but everybody would play it. So your support in the urban hip hop community was there. What happened was in the latter 90s, Louis was playing Louis, Danny Tenaglia was playing Tenaglia, Eric Morillo was playing Eric Morillo. You no longer had that record that just went across the board. So now you can go out as a house music lover and say, "Oh, I'm going to hear fucking, Danny Tenaglia." And you'll hear a couple of hours worth of whatever the fuck he's playing. Then you go see Timmy Regisford at the Shelter, and you're not going to hear anything you just heard the night before with Danny. Then you go see Louis, and he's playing a whole bunch of other shit. So as a house music community, there was no fucking unity. None. I mean, there's always been, I think it's funny when people, oh yeah, with this, let's stick together. There's no stick together. Our scene is, has, and always will be driven by ego. It's always ego. And anyone who tries to say it's not is truly misled. Everything about the DJ concept in the world is ego. As a 10, 11, 12-year-old person DJing in my neighborhood with 50 other DJs, I want everybody playing the Johnny D tapes. I want to DJ at block parties. I want to do all the parties at the fucking clubs on the corner, the Knights of Columbus. This was Sweet 16. This one's 50th anniversary, the bar mitzvah. I want to DJ all those. It's all ego. And my friends play my tapes and they support Johnny D. Nikki P up the block has his people. Frank Marino around the block has his people. Sal de Benedetto on second place has his people. It's all fucking ego. It's all it is. And it's not a bad thing. It just is what it is. Now you take a DJ. Now Johnny D starts to make a record. Louis Vega starts to make a record. Timmy Redford starts to make a record. Now that ego is turned into who's playing Johnny D, who's playing Timmy Redford, who's playing Louis Vega. So now, it's all a progression, and it's listen, competition, everything. It's a beautiful thing. It killed our business, and to look at what's going on today, I mean, I think today is absolutely disgusting. It's the cell phone thing killed it. The guys with the pre-programmed sets, the dancing around the booth. I listen. You don't want to sound like a 90-year-old. I don't want to be that guy. Oh, in my day, it was much better. It really was much better. It's not a matter of opinion. If you look back at footage of 1977, 1997, and 2024, it's night and fucking day. People aren't dancing. People are going. When people go see Louis Vega, he could be over there playing Scrabble. They're taking his picture. They're just watching him. Are they listening? Are they even listening to what the fuck he's playing? I don't think they give a shit. I don't think did they buy any of this stuff? Is anybody buying this shit? I think people that are buying vinyl, there's this vinyl research. Oh, vinyl, vinyl, vinyl. It's cool to buy vinyl, but it's just not. I see too many holes in it, and nobody discusses it. Everybody seems to think that if you speak positive, it's going to get better. It's not going to get better. I look at my son going through TikTok, and everything is a 10-second attention span, and it you know that's the biggest problem. These people that are going out to see whoever the DJ is, and it's like black coffee, whatever. Like I don't get it. I'll watch videos of these people that have 50,000 people in an arena. I don't get it, and it's not. I'm not jealous. I could give a fuck. Really, God bless everybody. Like I'm not the jealous guy. I literally, as a music lover, we started this conversation based on my love of music. I don't understand it. I don't, if I was born coming up, if I was 12 years old today, the last thing I wanted to do was be a DJ. I'd go into being a fucking plumber or an electrician. Like I couldn't even imagine. Oh, I can put those two records. I wouldn't even give a shit. And the technology also, I think it's great to have technology to do trickery and stuff, but I also think that you should almost have to graduate to that. I think that people just coming out, pressing buttons. I can't stand watching hip hop guys with that mixer where they press the button and it changes to another song. That drives me fucking crazy because that's not DJing. It's just not. And you could be the most incredible Jazzy Jeff cutting up, God bless, all day. I don't, when you press that button and you have all your things there, oh yeah, oh, all that, and you could just press a button and move to no, put the record down, put the needle. That's that art. The art was all of that. The record. I mean, how many times were you looking going through records and the inner sleeve gets caught and you miss your break? I mean, that's what it was. To just have these pressing button things, I don't know. It's like a cheating thing. And as I said, to each his own. I mean, it's funny. I saw Jazzy Jeff making a comment a couple of months ago, and he was kind of pissing on people that have a problem with the sync button. He's like, you know what? The sync button, what's the big deal? People just want to be at the party and it's all good, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, that sounds good, Jeff. I'm with you. But I have a question. If I could press a button and it could go and fucking outdo what you do, why would somebody have to book you to do that? And nobody has the balls to say that. But that's the true thing. I'm a guy that's always on beat. I give a fuck. I'm technical. If I go off beat, it's all I remember the rest of the night. That fucking 2 seconds that thing shifted. That's where my brain goes. So now I'm a purist. I'm gonna have some fucking clown come in, take my job, get more of a whatever fame, notoriety, money, all kinds of shit, who they don't even have a fraction of knowledge or anything my know-how, and they're going to take that. But he's saying that coming from a place where he's untouchable. But as soon as Serato or Tractor come out with that button where it says be Jazzy Jeff, then what? Who needs them? And I think that was the point that people, you don't see. I say it all the time. DJing is a very strange thing because in all of my years as a music lover, as a fan, and I'm a fan first and foremost. As a DJ, I rarely hear a DJ I like. And I'm talking about fully soup to nuts selection, on beat, on bar, knows the stuff, could read the floor, the whole shit. Very, very rarely. I mean, I don't even think I'm in a 5% thing, possibly. And I can name DJs. I mean, I just recently Nelson Paradise Roman. I've been going to a lot of his gigs. This fucking guy is flawless, and been hearing about the guy for years. Usually, when you hear about these people and you see them, there's a major disappointment. Guy's flawless. Ralph Rosario, fucking one of my favorite DJs ever. You know, there are so few. There's a guy named DJ Ace. He was on Kiss for years. Fucking guy, man. I mean, unbelievable. This guy, his knowledge, 7 inches, Serato, 12 inch, whatever the fuck. Just flawless, seamless, trickery, cutting up, not cutting up, backspinning, knowing the breaks, knowing unbelievable. Um, the DJ culture with all of this stuff that's happened, it's just it's turned too many people into it. For years, with me saying that there are 95% of people don't know what they're doing, you can go to, I'm not going to mention the guy's name, but I did a gig in 1993. I had the acetate of 100% pure love. It was the Billboard convention in San Francisco. I played with a couple of people that night, and I fucking killed the place. Nobody seemed to give a fuck. Guy gets on after me. Absolutely fucking horrible. Next day, next morning, I'm at the fucking breakfast buffet. Two gay guys online next to me. They're getting their fruit, whatever the fuck they're doing. They're like, "Oh my God, did you hear so and so last night?" And I'm expecting to like rip the guy a new asshole. They're like, "He was fucking working it." And I'm like, was I in a different fucking room? Like, what are they looking at? And that was an eye opener, man. I was like, you got to put the show. You got to kind of be an asshole, and people are not listening. They're just not. How many DJs that are horrible get booked over and over again? I say it. It's the only art form where you can be horrible and get booked the next day. If you were a photographer and you took blurry pictures and you sent those pictures to the new groom, the new husband and wife, and they open up that book and every fucking picture is blurry, I don't think they're going to pay you. They're definitely not going to refer you. You're probably not going to get to work again. You could be the worst fucking DJ in the world and you could be at Madison Square Garden. I see it happen. It's fucking amazing. And I'm not jealous. The public is so stupid, is where I'm going with this. And I give the public more credit. I give females more credit. When I see a girl being taken advantage of a guy and I hear a line that they throw him, I sit there and say, I just can't believe you fell for that. And I was just having this conversation, and I say, and I'm not, hey, listen, listen, the world does what it does. And I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but how do you not know where this is coming from? And I just think that I give the public so much credit, and they just don't deserve it. They really don't, because when you look at the scene, there is nothing. I want to be moved. I want to be moved. I am not, fuck that. This scene sucks. No, no, no. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to your gig. Move me. Let me get into. I want to feel this. Bring me back to. I did a gig with Jerry Santiago and this girl in uptown Manhattan 2 or 3 summers ago. I'm doing this gig. I'm fucking killing, like killing. Start the 115, just that fucking sleaze shit. Nobody gives a shit. Guy comes over to me right after I get off the CDJs, which I'm not a fan of, by the way. And the guy said, he goes, "Yo, my name is Bob Moss," and I heard of this guy. This guy was a legend in vinyl. He worked at Downstairs Records in the '70s. This guy is a retail god, and he said, "I can't believe what you played. I can't believe how you played." I says, "You know what? If you're the only person that this sold, I'm happy right there. I'm content." And I was so happy that I met him face to face. He said that. Fast forward a month later, I go to a Body and Soul event. Danny's on. and he's train wrecking Queen Samantha, Take a Chance. And the same girl I was doing the gig with was in front of the fucking stage, like having almost an out of body experience. And I'm sitting there saying, this fucking chick, I was playing for an hour and a half. She can give a fuck. This guy's, I don't know what the fuck he's doing. And there was a spirit coming out of her ass. And I'm like, and it's just, I wish I didn't have this story to tell you. I wish I didn't have that. I wish I could tell you, you know what, man? Let's have a conversation and talk about how fucking wonderful things are. I really do. Because I could be sarcastic, but I'm a true guy. I don't get high. And I think God puts me in positions. I didn't have to see this fucking chick. I didn't have to see her. Why at that point did I walk in and have to see her? Why? If I would have been 5 minutes later, went to take a piss, I could have missed that. Why did he want me to see that? I believe that happened on purpose. God wanted me to see that. And he wanted me to tell you the story. He wanted me to. That story should be out there. This chick was losing her fucking mind. Disaster. Losing her mind. I was fucking seamless. Seamless. She can give a fuck. She even offered me a water, by the way. I'm not going to mention her name either, but I think you could possibly figure it out at some point. I don't want to get into another female that was, oh my God. It's
Tell it.
just,
You got it.
it's
Now
just,
you started. You got to tell us the story. You got to tell us the fucking story.
there were just people that yeah. I've always been, I've never had insecurity issues. I always put people on. If you were like, listen, man, I really want to meet so and so, I would put that together in 2 seconds. If you became partners with that person and forgot my number, it's all good. That's what I do. I've never been, hey man, I did that for you. I need this on the other. I've never been that guy. And I just feel like I've done a lot for a lot of people, man. And it's amazing the thanklessness, the house music amnesia that exists, the ego. When COVID hit, you would think that people would say, shit, man, happy to be alive. God bless, let's just fucking no. It turned everybody. Well, first of all, it turned everybody into fucking Johnny Carson. So everybody became a fucking. I was the guy started doing the interviews. I don't know if you noticed. I mean, you were doing it, 30 years ago. But before COVID, when there was a thing out there called Periscope, Periscope came out before everything. My boy comes over to me and says, yo, man, look at this Kid Capri Periscope. Kid Capri's in his fucking basement talking, blah, blah, blah. He goes, Johnny D, you're the fucking man. He goes, nobody can do what you can do. You got to do this shit. I started a thing called Function House with this kid Anthony Vitale, my boy. And we started Function House together. We were doing the interview. And then after the interview, people would DJ, blah, blah, blah. We had a nice thing on. Then all of a sudden, Facebook Live came. Everybody in the mother. Lenny Fontana, I did my first 4 interviews for my radio station at Lenny Fontana's house. 6 months later, he's doing True House Stories. So I've been in this, but my point was during COVID, everybody's doing interviews. Chicago guys, this, Armand and Todd, it's fucking hysterical. So it's like COVID turned everybody into Barbara Walters and Johnny Carson, and then it turned everybody else into this fucking ego that it was just like, oh, let me tell you how great I was. I'm like, wait a second. When you were great, you never said you were great. Now you haven't had a hit in 20 years and you want everybody to see how great you are. That's another thing nobody discusses. There hasn't been a hit in our scene. When I say our, I mean the house music scene has not been a hit in 20 fucking years. I think the last one I could honestly say I'm responsible for partially was Kings of Tomorrow finally. Outside of that, I don't know. What are you gonna say? The Hey Hey record, maybe? I don't know. Other than that, I don't know another record that's kind of had true, real kind of absolute punch. I don't know of one. I don't know of one. And these people are making records at an incredible rate, and there's just nothing exciting going on. And it's how much could you put out? of just getting that mediocre. It's like you're going off of fumes. Listen, records Nikki and I make, I always say, I've been saying this for years. If you like John Nick, we're doing exactly what we did in 1993 and 2024. If you love it, come back. If you don't like it, go to the next guy. Well, I'm not sitting there trying to say, oh, you know what, Nick? We're almost going to be 60 years old. Let's start trying to get into the mind of a 15-year-old. I'm not going to do it. I'm not interested. If the 15-year-old is attracted and gets it, I welcome it and I love it. But I'm not going to redo my whole life to accommodate some fucking druggy kids on a dance floor looking through their phone all night. I'm not going to do it. That's called. I'm gonna quote Joe Clausell. That's called being a slave to the scene, and that's what that is. When you're, I'm not saying you shouldn't try to accommodate. You got to make it fit. Leroy Washington made it fit. He could have easily just sat there all fucking night playing Wham and fucking all this 80s pop shit, and those people would have been losing their fucking minds. But he wanted to break Sex Shooter. He wanted to break They Only Come Out at Night by Peter Brown. And he found a way to segue those records in because that's what he felt he needed to do. As a DJ growing up, people just give me lists. John, make me this tape. Situation, Planet Rock, IOU, looking for the perfect beat. Get another list. Situation, perfect beat. I'm like, guys, those are great records. They're on the radio all fucking day. I'm gonna go in. Oh, Johnny D plays a lot of. He plays weird stuff sometimes. Yeah, motherfucker. That's what I'm supposed to do. What you're asking me to do is be a jukebox. You can put the radio on and hear that shit all day. My radio station that runs 24 hours a day, predominantly disco, but I'll play country, fucking Jim. You'll hear everything in the world there except reggae. You won't hear Disco Inferno. You won't hear We Are Family. You won't hear I Will Survive. Those are staple records. God bless them. You're not going to hear them on my station. I'll play Never Can Say Goodbye by Gloria Gaynor. I'll play 5 other Tramps records. I'll play every other fucking Nile Rodgers record. But you're gonna. The other night I heard Would You Love Me on a Warm Summer Night, Chic. I mean, you're not hearing that on radio, but I play it. So I'm trying to turn my. I've always felt as a person that feels that I have a good knowledge of music, my job is to turn people onto music. That's it. End of story. Now, if I know how to actually put it together in a good way, that's a bonus. But my job, as far as I'm concerned, is to turn you onto music. And the biggest compliment I get and can get is, oh shit, Johnny D played this record, Southern Freeze. I never heard that record before. Oh shit, Johnny D played Mark Anthony Rebel. I didn't know that because the record never got radio play. And it was a freestyle record before he blew up and before he got with Louis. And if I didn't play it, who the fuck is gonna play it? So I love that. I'm so proud. I play Buttercup by fucking Carl Anson. People call me, oh, what is that record? Nobody has any idea what the fuck it is. I love that. That is what I feel I'm here to do. And I want to keep doing it. And I want to just turn people on to music and keep it moving. I don't love when you do a gig and you see those 10 guys in the corner taking notes or Shazamming, and then you go to their gig and they're fucking claiming the shit. That's the downside to turning people. I was doing this 45 gig called Mobile Mondays at Bowery Electric. I did it for a couple of years and it was great. Just Blaze, Joey Carvello, Ems, a lot of people there. And another thing, I be in there and I mix 45s. I'm not just slapping it. I'm fucking mixing, like which very few people mix 45s. Doing it the right way. I'm killing the fucking place. And it's like, you get your fans there, whatever. But it was a lot of DJs that used to come and hear me. And they would come and hear me because they were building their sets up. So I go see Prince Paul one day. So Prince Paul, obviously he's a big hip hop producer. He's in the back room and he's there and he's doing his thing. He's not really mixing, he's just playing one record after the other. And he drops Kiss by Prince. And the place like absolutely loses their mind. I'm like, I'm sitting here weekly for hours, fucking killing, mixing, boom, layering shit, going cross genres, blah blah. This guy just drops a fucking pot. If I would have played that record, they would have fucking thrown things at me. But that's the other part of this. There's the illusion. Oh, this guy's doing it, so it must be great. I loved when the DJ was in the corner you didn't see. I don't think we should be seen. I've been advocating for this for years. I don't think we should be seen. People shouldn't have access to come up and say, could you play it? No, there's no requests. You couldn't go to Studio 54. You couldn't go to Larry Levan and ask to play a fucking record. You should not have access to the DJ. You shouldn't even see the fucking DJ. That's what I think. I think we should be in a corner somewhere doing what we do. That's why we're getting paid or whatever it is to do the gig. And the access, people thinking that they have more say than they should. I think it's a bad thing for our scene.
Two-part question. What happened to the DJ residency, and how important is a DJ residency in building someone's career today? Is it relevant? Is it not relevant?
DJ residency is done. And the people that killed the DJ residency, and you could blame this 1 trillion% on the promoters. So what happened was I started the conversation talking about Danny Cole. We played 10 to 4. If I was there by myself and I had to take a fucking piss, I had to put a long record on and run through a crowd of people and come back and make sure that record wasn't over. There was no 17 guys. When the DJ went from one DJ a night, taking you on a journey, by the way, we'd start off our night, Shack Attack, down on the street, down, nice mellow shit, and then get us where we gotta go and then come back down. That's what a DJ's supposed to do. Now you're going to say, okay, from 10 to 4, instead of having one guy, let's have 6 guys. So what does everybody want to do? They want to be booked the next day, the next week. How are they going to do that? Well, you can't go in there and start rocking early mellow shit. You got to have peak shit. You got to remember, oh, he played those hits. So now you're putting a chokehold on breaking new records. Who's going to have the balls to put an unfamiliar record on when you want to get booked again? So these promoters putting 10 guys at a gig, every one of them has to be remembered. Johnny D's not going to be remembered playing mellow shit for an hour. They're going to wait for that guy at 12 o'clock on the peak. But now you got 6 hours of peak. Everybody's just playing the bombs. How are you going to get a record from this point to this point? It's not going to happen. You're not going to break music anymore. Everybody wants to play the hits. That destroyed the residency. It destroyed our scene. And it took the attention span. Listen, when Serato came out, I'm sure you were watching it. Jazzy Jeff was one of the first people, and he called me up. He goes, "Yo, JD, name a song, name a song." I'm like, "Rock the Bells." Boom. Name another song. And I kept throwing songs out. And in 2 seconds, I'm like, "How the fuck are you doing that?" He goes, "Yo, this thing coming out, Serato, blah, blah, blah." So what happened? Once Serato took over the scene, what was happening when you went to the clubs? Go back to the Kiss Prince record. Then what else was everybody else was doing? Boom. It's driving me. Everybody had the Poison drop, the Kiss drop, the Michael Jackson. Mama saying, Mama Zama. Oh shit, Q points. So now everybody took all the fucking best parts of these songs that lasted between 15 and 30 seconds. And your night went from hearing an entire song to hearing 15-minute increments for an hour till the next douchebag comes on and does the same exact fucking thing. You destroyed the scene. You destroy you totally take away the possibility of breaking new music. The DJ becomes disposable. This is the part that's crazy about it. The promoters didn't give 2 fucks about the DJ. They cared about bottle service because bottle service came in simultaneously. So now you got the DJ that's irrelevant. I remember back in 1980, I was DJing at a place when I first started spinning, and one of the club owners said, you guys want $125 for the night. I can give my nephew $35 and him and his friends will drink all night for free. That was their mentality. The DJ never was respected. So it was like anybody could play records. And at the end of the day, fast forward to 2024, who's DJing? Everybody. Everybody's a fucking DJ. So in essence, anybody can play records, but can they play them right? Can they play? But the public, getting back to that point I made, do they know? All they want to do is they only want to hear what they want to hear. When people leave a club, They don't remember how bad or good the DJ was. They remember, I wanted to hear that record. I heard that record. Oh, he didn't play that record. I wish he would have played that record. Very few of them are sitting there talking about the technicality, how the guy moved the crowd. Very few people give a shit about that.
How would you define soulful house? How would you define underground dance music?
I mean, Soulful House to me, um, I remember when you interviewed me years ago, Cashmere was really big with what's her name? I can't. I'm by my. What's her name? I'm blanking. Uh,
Um,
what's her name? Fucking Brighter Days.
Daje?
Dajé. I remember we had made a big thing about the whole Dajé, how incredible she was. I mean, listen, I'm a soulful house DJ. I am not an EDM guy. I don't. I I still look for that kind of music. The only music I can honestly say new that I hear that I actually connect to a lot is Ron Trent, Joe Claussell, a lot. I don't connect with a lot of these house records I hear. There are a lot of guys out there. I think some guys will come and hit, there'll be some hit or misses, but to say somebody's work or something like that, I haven't been in love with Soulful House in a while. I don't really go digging too deep because I find that it winds up being a waste of time and it's more disappointing than enriching. It's not if I go on a track source or whatever and go to the top 100, my mouth is open, like I'm in shock most of the time. I remember when track source first came out, Brian was like, "Oh, that record's got a sample. Oh, you got a sample." He was like A&Ring what was going on. Now it's basically fucking bootleg central. It's like you take Billie Jean, you put a drum under it, you call it Billie Jean, you take the fucking publishing. It's like I don't even understand what's going on. So, defining Soulful House, I don't know. I mean, to me, it was always predominantly black. I mean, there were a couple of us white and Puerto Rican guys that could get into it, but it was always predominantly a black musical experience that kind of grabbed different elements and created. I come from the Marshall Jefferson. I come from that. There was a structure. There's melody. There's fucking strings. There's arrangement. Are there mindless tracks that I like? Absolutely. Not too many. Not too many. I mean, to me, when you look at Chicago as a whole, I've always given Chicago crazy love. Although I will say the first house record was visual. The music's got me. And that's a debate we always constantly have with the Chicago guys because they don't agree. Or they'll give Boyd his credit, but they don't, house, they say whatever. But I think Marshall and Hurley were so ahead and still are ahead. I mean, you listen back to those records, or it's Ragtime or the 10th City, or I listened to Time Marches On the other day. Those records, I mean, Larry Heard, I mean, those fucking records were just, there's no burn. There's no, Steve Silk Hurley is a fucking genius. Like, you listen to his records. Every time I talk to Steve, like I talk about Jack Your Body. And if you listen to Jack Your Body, not just listen to it, but if you listen to it and break it down, the way he layered that record, it blows my mind. I never listened to that record the same way. Every time it comes on, dum, 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 dang, 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 and it's like he's got so much shit going on, and it's fucking lit. Sonically, forget about fucking his talent as far as producing. The mix, nobody like that fucking guy. Nobody. Um, so if you're comparing today to that, which unfortunately I do, I'm not very optimistic. Dance music as a whole, when this, David Guetta and this Black Coffee thing came in, I don't subscribe to any of that shit. They're making their money. God bless. I listen. I would be very pissed if I were one of the guys that's been DJing out for years, struggling. And I mean, I've been DJing for almost 45 years, but I'm talking about a guy on the road 50 weeks a year. And then you watch these fucking clowns come out of nowhere making 60 million. That would really, I would have a hard time with that. That would, that would fuck me up. I'm sure it's bothering a lot of these guys. They don't say it because you don't want to sound like that, but there's a lot of truth to that. There's no way you could sit back and watch Steve Aoki throwing a cake at somebody making $50 million a fucking year, and you're doing something where your whole life you've been like so precious. It's like I think the only way to kind of explain that is if you're a contractor and you build houses from the ground up and your whole life you broke your ass and your grandfather and your father they taught you how to build houses. All of a sudden, these guys come with these prefab homes and they come down the fucking street on a truck and they take the whole house off the thing, they put it on a base and they drive away. It's like that's the only kind of a analogy that you can almost put it to. It's I think it's that ridiculous, And it's listen, people say it all the time. And I could just stay in my world. I mean, I'm putting out new music, I do different stuff, obviously, but I could just stay in my world and I'm in the process of starting, I don't want to say the word podcast, but these kind of story things on a weekly basis where I'm talking about music, whether I'm mixing or not. And it could be an Alan Parsons record or a fucking Marshall Jefferson record. It could be whatever it is, talking about a bunch of records, what they mean to me about the time, whatever it was. And I just feel that kind of important because I do have, somewhat of a knowledge of this stuff. And it does touch me in a different way. And I'm hoping I can, like I said before, just turn people on to music that might have gotten by because there's no doubt I'm learning every day. There's so much music out there. It's like we're constantly learning. It's out there. I try to stay free 90 and learn as much about that history more than anything. I mean, I could turn on to some house stuff from the 90s forward, but after 2000, there's very, very little that I'm concerned about. Don't get me wrong, I get turned on here and there. Yo, did you hear this guy? Did you hear that? There are things, there's no doubt. There is talent out there. I just I find myself more comfortable going back to that time. I'd rather hear more stuff in the 70s I didn't know about to see what those people were doing. Were they copying Giorgio? Were they copying Barry White? And oh, this is like the watered down version of that. And I find that that's more enjoyable for my head musically.
Let's talk about reunion parties, the Loft and Paradise Garage. What do these legacies mean today?
I was online with Bobby Shaw at a Body and Soul event let's say 20 years ago, 2020, yeah, about 2003. We're online at this event, and there were all these Japanese people in front of me. I looked at Bobby. I said, Bobby, these people had the best time of their lives. They didn't get in yet. He looked at me. I said, do you realize like how crazy our scene is? What I meant by that was when Larry Levan died, nobody gave a fuck. Nobody cared. It was just like whatever, he died. All of a sudden, somebody decided that the garage was whatever, and all of a sudden the garage, rather than being and let's not get it twisted, the garage was predominantly a gay black male club. Everybody today, oh, I was at the garage. All these fucking white heterosexual guys were at the garage. How? How the fuck is it possible? They weren't there. Everybody's there. No, you weren't there. You were not fucking there. Charlie Grappone was there. Manny Lehman was there. A couple of the white people were there. Very few. Bobby Shaw, Judy Russell. Stop. These fucking people, it's insanity. Everybody wants to be part of the history, any of it. So Body and Soul, they're really smart because they're picking up all those crumbs. Francois has a tremendous fucking legacy. Crivet has his following. Joe Clausell. So it's actually, last time I was at one of them, I took my hat up to John Davis and said, I got to tell you, man, You put this thing together. You really grew this into a worldwide phenomenon. God bless. I mean, that's a beautiful fucking thing. But I think the people had a good time before they walked in. I don't think they give a shit what's being played. I don't think they care. Now, yeah, do I love being there hearing Trussell Love Injection? Absolutely. But, I can go there and hear 3 hours of music. I don't know what the fuck I'm hearing. The last time I went, I didn't know almost everything. So I don't know how many people are there in awe. Oh shit, that's Danny Cribbett. That's Joe Clausell. Like, are they there for that? Are they there because they want to go back and just tell people they were there? Like, I don't know. I think it's when we were in the middle of it in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, we were just doing it. We weren't doing it to then say, oh, 20 years from now, we're going to talk about how great that was. We were doing it because we wanted to be there, whatever. I don't know how much of an ulterior motive there is today to say you were there. I don't know. I mean, that could also be me being a pessimistic prick, but I don't know. I mean, that's just kind of where I go with that. I think the scene is seeing Black Coffee sell out of Madison Square Garden to me, I think is kind of a joke. I don't understand that. With all the DJs, all the culture we have here, we got to go to that guy to come back to New York. That's almost a smack in everybody's face in New York. I'm from Brooklyn. I see these fucking guys coming to Brooklyn doing gigs. It drives me crazy. I'm like Brooklyn fucking, I almost have a tattoo on my forehead. I see clowns in my backyard all fucking day from Boston, from here, from there. I'm like, what the fuck are they doing in my town? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. The only thing that kind of saves it is that most of it takes place in Williamsburg, and I've always considered Williamsburg Queens. So that's how I get around that. I'm like, fuck that. That ain't real Brooklyn. Williamsburg isn't fucking Brooklyn. Brooklyn's Brooklyn. That's not Brooklyn. So they could have it. All those fucking clowns over there, let them fucking take it. That ain't Brooklyn.
This is the best interview ever. Oh my God. What are some of the key elements you believe makes a great house track?
I think drums are very important. And I think it's hard. Drums are much more difficult than people realize, because if you make a drum that has that dated sound, that's it. If you go back to any of those Morales records, John Morales said, with that fucking snap, you can't play those records. They have the instant dated. When he did those Shalimar remixes, you can't play them because they sound like shit because of those stupid drums. So I think drums are important. Ironically, Nikki used to sit there for hours of program drums. I would just sample Kenny or Armand. I'm like, to me, sit there and just program drums for 2 hours. I want to kill my. I say that doesn't make, just sample a good loop. I think drums are important. I love structure, and as I said before, there are some monotonous dum 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 dum. I mean, I'll get into some of those, but I think that certain people have the magic when they do those. I did a gig a couple of years ago. It's 10 years ago in England. And I was upstairs. I was doing the downstairs at a gig, and Asunlade was upstairs. And Asunlade and I got to the club at the same time. We were hanging out. He brought food and stuff. He was eating, which was kind of funny. So we're sitting at the bottom layer of this club, and I forgot who the guy was on before me. And he's on in the booth, and he's playing literally for an hour and a half. It's like and I'm sitting there saying, I gotta follow this fucking guy, and it's and I'm just trying to understand. And he was a good DJ. Like, he had CDJs and he had vinyl, and he was in and out, but it was literally did it right. And he's got this going for an hour. All of a sudden, he pulls a record and it goes, did it, what a lot, did, had that one little fucking thing, like an acid sound. The place, and it was like Eddie Murphy in Raw when he says, if you're in prison and, you're starving, I throw you a Ritz cracker. You're like, oh my God, that's with that steak. Like, this guy threw a little sound at them, after an hour and a half of this monotonous bullshit, they went fucking crazy. So here's the funny part of the story. This guy gets off. I go on. Asunade is getting ready to go upstairs to the gig. As I'm playing, everybody follows Asunade. So the entire lower level that I'm at empties out. So I'm with Pete from BBE, right? So Pete's on the fucking couch looking at me. There's two people left. Literally. I said, so you guys hired me to come and do the procession for a Sula Day, you know? So I'm sitting there and I'm playing fucking records, and Pete's like, what the fuck? And I'm trying to just, I'm trying to find humor in the whole thing. So I played about 15 minutes of house records. I said, you know what? Fuck this shit. I put on The Bridge by MC Shan. I play hip hop for an hour. All of a sudden, people start coming down. I'm looking at Pete. I said, I'm playing hip hop in a, and the thing that was weird was the guy upstairs before me was playing disco. The guy downstairs was playing this fucking drum bullshit. I should have been following that fucking guy, and I thought they should have been following this fucking drum guy. So even the way that going back to the promoters, they fucked that up because even that thing was a disaster. But yeah, I don't even know why I went into that thing. But yes, as far as what was the question? With I really I think I'm losing as I'm talking to you. I'm getting old. My brain is aging. I'm forgetting
Oh,
the
so
base.
the question was, what are some of the key elements that make a great house track?
Oh yeah, so the key elements, like the drums. I love. I think a melody. You got to have a melodic track somewhere. I think that you do. There's got to be some kind of stringy thing. I mean, if you look at most of the records Nikki and I do, there's string arrangements, and it's not just the hard drum part. I think that the disco elements give it a nice touch, and I don't like mechanical sounding keyboard sounds. I don't like that. That's the reason I started Henry Street. There were a lot of records coming out on Strictly and all these other labels that went donk, donk, donk. I'm just like, that's fucking, that's somebody if you can visualize the person just going like this, that's not a good song. If you can visualize how simple that track was to make, that's not a good song. And I would weigh it that way.
What advice would you give to new artists trying to break into the music industry today?
Change professions. I would now I listen, I honestly, if someone really wanted to be in this game on in any way, shape, or form, whether it's a DJ side or a vocalist, I would say, unfortunately, and I hate to even say this is my advice, but I would say invest in a social media guru because smoke and mirrors has become 99.9% of this fucking game, man. It's perception is everything. Look at your when you get off this phone call with me, go into your feed. How many people are DJing, dancing, jumping, having a heart attack on the fucking isolator? It's become an absolute comic book. The what you and I were based on, that's gone. It's gone. Right now, you know, what are you wearing? How do you look? How are you dancing? It's all of the things that never, ever were a factor are the factors at this point. What you're playing is has taken the back seat to this entire game. The music. When I first started the music business, I sat down with Tony Monti at S.I.N. He said to me, this is the main thing you have to understand about the music business. It's got nothing to do with the music. And when he said that to me, I walked to my fucking desk. I was like, wow, that was like a major punch to my fucking stomach right there. You don't want to hear that. Being a music lover, a purist, you don't want that reality. And it is that way right now. I saw what he was saying on a business side. Now it's true on the entertainment side, 100%. It's got nothing to do with it. I've been saying I want to do this for the longest time. I want to get 5 big DJ names, really big fucking guy, or maybe one big name and four scrubs that nobody knows. I want to put them on a stage and I want to have them behind a curtain. They can see the crowd, but the crowd can't see them. I want to see how many of those people are rocking to the music by the no-name guy, and how many people are rocking to the music by the guy that they think is a superstar. I would love to pull that off. I would love to just shoot holes in everybody's fucking theory and let people really see how it's all bullshit. It really is all bullshit. We are at a time right now when I see these arenas. Listen, MK. I have been one of the biggest supporters of MK since day one. I promoted him for free. That my old job used to be pissing me to like, yo, like MCT didn't hire us, and Mark and I were very, very close. I got close with his brother Scott, did records for me on Henry Street and everything. MK was never a DJ. MK is selling out arenas today. I think it's hysterical, and I'm so happy for him. But it's wild. He's not a DJ. It's fucking crazy. 40,000, 50,000 people. Fucking needs. Yeah, there's a call commercial with him. God bless. I love it. I'm so happy for him. But that's where we're at right now. That's where we're at. The seasoned veteran guys. Hey, listen, if I have to have a gripe, I'll give you my gripe. Um, I'm Italian. I don't get booked in Italy. I say, with all the accomplishments I have, with the Bucketheads, everything but the girl, Tori, all these big fucking records, and forget about all that shit, just being a fucking DJ and knowing what I'm doing. But none of that seems to matter. But I'll see people in Italy that I'm just like, how are they getting booked? Oh, well, so and so was on the radio in the 80s. I'm like, all right. And I had a slew of three of arguably the biggest records of the decade in the 90s. So what the fuck does that mean? It's like, it's just the promoters and everything about it. There were just all these layers of bullshit. I wanted to do a gig in the city. Um, I wanted to do an anniversary 5 years ago for the 25th anniversary at that the Standard on the West Side Highway, the beautiful outdoor thing over there. I had been there for a bunch of people. I went to see my boy Moplin was in from Italy. I've been there to see Lenny Fontana. So I called up the promoter and I said, listen, I'd like to do this. I'd like to do this gig there with me and Tommy Musto, 25th anniversary. She said, oh, how many people you think you're going to be able to bring in? I said, who the fuck asks that question? And I'm like, by the way, the last five people I've seen at this fucking place, I don't think any of them knew who the fuck the DJ was. It was a bunch of random jerk off fucking people that were staying at a $500 a night hotel in the meatpacking district that have disposable money, high on cocaine and heroin, whatever the fuck they were shooting up. And that was what was basically making up that dance floor. Why do I gotta supply a list and a blood sample and a fucking urine sample? Like, and it's just one more thing of I'm not gonna do it. And just at this point, I'll play for myself. When Bob Morse came over to me and said, wow, what you did, blah, blah, blah. At that point, I says, you know what? I play for me. I did a couple of gigs in Staten Island last year. One of them is a record called Love Magic by John Davis and Mount Orchestra. Monster disc, one of my favorite records of all time. It cleared the dance floor. This is all Guidos and fucking Guidettes in this place. There's no way this should clear a fucking dance floor. And I was DJing with Ralphie D. And I said, Ralphie, like, I seriously, I want to go home. I said, this is the most bizarre crowd I've ever seen. He goes, you got to play stupid. I said, what does that mean? He goes, you got to just play stupid. He goes, you're thinking, you're being too smart. I said, I don't even know what the fuck that means. But I refuse to. And then he puts on This Time I Know It's Real. And I'm a big Donna fan. And I happen to love that song. And the place erupted. I said, if I got to sit here and play Kathy Dennis, like that's not what I do. I'd rather stay in my room. I'm not going to go out. Now, listen, if I wanted to become a wedding DJ and play the Macarena and Beyonce and all this garbage, yeah, you give me $5 grand a night, I'll put the tuxedo on, I'll sit there, I'll throw the laser on your neck. Abso-fucking-lutely. At that point, I'm gonna say I will do this. Being me, the guy who loves music, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm just not gonna fucking do it. If I'm gonna make the turn, I'm going 100% the other way. I'm gonna become Johnny D fucking party DJ, and I'll be playing the fucking Michael Jackson Prince shit all fucking day. Beyonce, Kendrick, whatever the fuck is happening for the moment, I will be rocking that shit. But until that day comes, I refuse to just make any compensation for any of these people. I just won't do it. I'd rather not do the gig. If I'm gonna do the gig and not be satisfied, what am I doing it for? I never did anything in this game for the money. I'm not gonna start at this age. And if I'm gonna do it for the money, I'm going the total opposite. I'm going Macarena. Like that's where the fuck I'm going. I'm going Mambo #5. That's where the fuck I like to move it. That's where I'm going.
One thing we didn't talk about was your time at Atlantic Records. You were
Yes.
uh, uh, you were responsible for tons of hit records.
Yes.
Talk about that experience at Atlantic Records and what you did there. Also talk about
Yes.
the remix process and some of the let people know like drop jewels and people these remixes, who you hired, what that process entailed, and some of those hit records that came out of those, and the artists that you work with to make those records.
Okay. So I was working at S.I.N, Street Information Network, and I was very good friends with Rich Christina, who was at Atlantic Records at the time, and he wanted to move into A&R out of promotion, and he wanted to bring me into Atlantic. Before that happened, he had this group, Everything But the Girl, which was thrown on his lap, and he was like, he wanted to get mixes done, so he had sent it over to me. At the time, I was very close with Todd. I said, yo, Todd, this will be a fucking great opportunity for you. Todd didn't want to do it. There was a very small budget. And it wound up, he did the record, and I serviced it 5 times, wound up becoming, a monster hit worldwide. I had the Bucketheads on Henry Street at the time before I got there. I wound up doing Tori Amos, which was her biggest record, #1 pop record in the UK. I signed I did work with the Braxtons, BB Winans, hundreds, Bette Midler, so many people. MK, which I spoke of before, was one of the first guys I put on right away because even though he was kind of out of it at that point, I wanted to bring him back in. And obviously, Kenny Armand, I had Kenny and Louie do a bunch of records. I worked with really just about everybody I wanted to. Um, at the same time, I was working for Rhino, so I produced the definitive Old Dirty Bastard, Best of Brandy, Roberta Flack. I did the Ashford and Simpson project, which was phenomenal. Um, Casey and the Sunshine Band. I mean, Tommy Boy. I did 100. Larry Levan compilation, probably the best Larry comp on the market, called Journey into Paradise, the Larry Levan story. So I was predominantly a promotion person. I moved into A&R, so I was doing promotion and A&R. Um, One of the last records I signed was Kings of Tomorrow, finally, which we had discussed before. And yeah, I had a great, like a 15-year run over there, and it was very exciting. I loved it because I had a lot of power to sign the record, make the record, promote the record. The downside was Atlantic Records wasn't really a powerhouse with black rhythmic music, so I was a one-man show. So having the freedom was incredible, but I really didn't have the fucking push or the backup from the rest of the company. That kind of sucked. Looking at my peers at Arista and stuff like that. One thing I will say about Atlantic, which was funny, so I did Everything But the Girl, and a couple of months after it blew up overseas, I was reading a blues and soul magazine, and somebody for me, the Warner in the UK or Blanco and Negro, wrote, "Oh, when I hired Todd Terry," I'm like, "Hi, Todd Terry, who the fuck is this guy?" And at that point, what I did was I um I said I got to put my name on every record I do. So almost every record I did said, post production or coordinated Johnny D, directed by Johnny D. And people thought it was for ego. It had nothing. I'm glad years later, because for my legacy, if I didn't have it there, anybody could just be saying it was all them. But I was happy for my legacy. It was funny because other labels started doing the same thing, but they were doing it for different reasons. I wasn't doing it for ego. I was doing it just to protect my legacy of what I had done. So yeah, so Atlantic was 15 years run between Atlantic, Rhino. I did Britney Spears for Jive. I'd helped out my boy over there. I had done 1 week Bare Naked Ladies at Warner Brothers. I helped them A&R that. A Hall and Oates on an independent label. I had Mustard do. I've always, you know, helped a lot of people. I've done a lot of records. In my books, I have 2 books which I'll plug real quick. One is called Journey into Color, a music, color, and other situations, which is predominantly a colored vinyl and a lot of like some of my stories of a lot of the records I've done and stuff. Then I did another one called From I Left My Heart in San Francisco till I Lost My Wallet in El Segundo, which is a 7-inch book of like all tests and estates about my collection, and I go into a lot of that. So those 2 books are out there. I have another book coming out hopefully soon. I'm just going through the edits right now, which is biographical, covering a lot of what we just discussed here. I go more in depth with some of these stories as far as working with artists and remixes and just the day to day of a record company and major label structure. And I was blessed to be in the underground and on the major label at the same time. I don't think there's ever been anyone else to do that. And I think I did a pretty good job. It was it was challenging, but it was great because if I could say, wow, I'm gonna give King Brit his first major label remix, DJ Sneak his first major label remix, Armand Van Helden his first jungle remix. I did a lot of that. And I was very concerned about closing that gap, bringing the underground, Tori Amos and Armand Van Helden. There's no way in a million fucking years those 2 people are in the same sentence. So I did that, Chicago with the Bucketheads and everything but the girl and Todd Terry. At that time you're talking about two, that's like Trump and Kamala. Like you're talking about 2 different fucking worlds right there. So the fact that I did it and I had success with it, kind of proves my point about, you know, you need to be a game changer. And when I speak about Hurley and Marshall Jefferson, I always say those guys were game changers. And my success came from records that were the game changer. Tori Amos record started a new genre. I wasn't a big fan of speed garage, but it really was the godfather of speed garage. Everything but the girl. That's a folky thing with this beat, whatever. That's different. The Bucketheads, people, what the fuck? 5 minute intro. People like, what is this? Like, they didn't understand a funk phenomena, hip hop. It's the swing. They were all very different, and they were all successful. The Captain, which is Armand took for "You Don't Know Me," which was his #1 pop record. That's another record that Armand and I are tied to a lot of our success is tied. I rarely hear him talk about it, but it's kind of funny that we're married on a success level, and our report cards, there's a marriage there. A lot of these guys, it's funny how fans and other people will be like, Johnny D, and I'm not saying I need people to blow me all day, but it's amazing how many people are unearthed. They're coming across, oh shit, Johnny D, you did this, blah blah blah, and there's this love and support, and the people that were in fact the people I put on rarely mention me in any of these interviews. So I think it's actually quite comical, and it's giving me more reason why I can't wait for this fucking book to come out, just to basically put everything straight the way it is. Because I don't get high, and my recollection's pretty great, so everything is exactly. I can recall everything from all of these things, from the makings of this and sample clearances and lawyers and people who fucked me, and that's a book in itself. But yeah, there's a lot of that. A lot of that.
That'll be in a part 2 interview. And the
Yes,
last
absolutely.
the last question is, what do you want your legacy to be?
What's funny, man, as you get older, it's like it's all about like my kids. It's I've been very blessed. I thank God, for all my blessings and my children. Watching my children grow. That's another thing, like I said before. People talk about their kids like you roll your eyes, yeah, whatever. But it really, at the end of the day, it's like listen, I work with people like you and, you know, people like-minded like us in this thing. It's great that we can kind of preserve the stories and the history and things like that. But at the end of the day, it's really about um my children, as far as just just making good people and just trying to hopefully let them have a good life. And I'm hoping that they can just refer back to, you know, anything I've done and, you know, actually use it to their advantage or as a reference point. But the more people I speak to at my age, everybody's always like, especially people who have a lot. I mean, I have like a lot of records and I collect everything. I'm out of my mind. But you really, at the end of the day, when you die, it's really about, you know, stuff is stuff. And it's about what people remember you by. I mean, I like to think to myself, I think I'm a really good guy. I don't screw anybody. I'll give you the last nickel in my pocket. But as a Capricorn, I do have to flip it at that. If you fuck me, I'm done. So there is that one strike kind of a thing, which it's kind of a weird thing being a Catholic and 12 years of Catholic school saying, you know, I'm so, you feel like you're spiritual, but then you have that part where you're like, how could you be so quick to just cut people off? But I find that people will show you how good or bad they are. Like you don't even have to dig too deep. You're gonna know how people are, where they're coming from. And the older I get, I'm very, very particular about my time. My time management is everything. We don't have a lot of it on this planet. You know, we don't know, it could be over tomorrow. And time is very important. So I'm very blessed to look back and have this conversation with you and just go through shit. It's phenomenal. I'm so happy that my legacy is such. But I hope that my children are healthy and they have children and keep things going. And then if they can look back and say, yo, you know, this is my father, my grandfather, whatever, that would be really what it would be about for me. You know, I mean, I'm in the history book, so I like that. I just hope that the books don't get rewritten. A lot of people are trying to rewrite shit as we speak.
Thank you. This was fantastic. I appreciate your time. It was great to catch up with this so many years.
Thank you so much, man. It was a
Thank you.
pleasure.
Thank you.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.